Which ones are sort of next?
Okay, yep.
So which one? Insert word one at a time.
Yeah.
Should we do it again? Yeah. Okay, we'll call the March 4th, 2025 commission meeting to order. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'd like to ask 1 second. I didn't, all Commissioner Cindy, she on the,
No, she was not gonna be available.
oh, I apologize. Okay, yeah, so, Cindy is absent. Okay, the approval of the order of agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
on the agenda, it shows under county administrators line item that planning and zoning board military advisory appointment.
Okay.
I would like to move that up to Elaine Magnuson under county planner under 9B.
Second.
Did you want to bring up that change order? and just
I'll
stick
bring
with
it up under my committee.
Okay.
All right. First and second, we have all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Approval of consent agenda, bills, employee status change, overtime, and bond for check reissue.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Citizen comments, any citizens today that would like to address the board? Okay, we will move on to emergency management director. Oh, Kari, you're there on the screen. Are you there, Kari?
I think you're muted, Kari.
There she is. Is it our sound?
Chris, great job.
Sure, it's also the IT man.
The volume's up.
Volume is up.
Madam Chair, Ms. Gills did ask me to, if she had technical issues to do her briefing, which
Okay, go ahead.
I can muddle through that.
Okay, very good.
So essentially what emergency management is
Test,
requesting.
test.
Yeah, all right.
Perfect.
we're throwing the ball back to you. Go ahead, Kari.
Okay, Tom, you're gonna have to jump in.
Whenever you need me to.
You can hear me?
I can hear you, Kari.
Okay, very good. We'll try again. All right, good afternoon. I'm not techie, just so you know. Just here today to ask for approval for the purchase of 12 siren compliant radios for the EM office. As you read in your packets, the purchase price is within our budget. And with the reimbursement from the state, the actual end price will be just over $6,000 for the 12 radios.
I'll move approval. I'll second.
First and second, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Anything else, Kari? I think that was a no. So that's it. All right, we're gonna move on. Correctional Center Administrator.
Commissioner Hagan, members of the commission, I apologize for not getting this to you earlier, but it came in the last piece at about 10:30 this morning. And this is the Hope and Poly Jail for the bunk beds and tables that we were looking at for the which would be necessary for the expansion, if approved by the Department of Corrections, going from 72 beds to 82 beds. First and foremost, Poly Jail up on top. Their quote is $19,105 for 5.
Sure. Last time that happened too, we'll just keep it off.
5 bunk beds and 4 of the stainless steel tables that match everything that was put in the expansion. 19,105. That is just for the equipment. If we had them install it, that is, I think that would be the last page you see on the Poly Jail attachment. $168 an hour, 70 cents a mile, $130 per diem, and any miscellaneous materials. What I would ask if you want to proceed forward is that we, the county, do the installation, as those bunk beds are 4 bolts into the concrete. The tables, I think, are 4 as well. We're going to be the ones that decide where they get placed. And Poly Jail is in the correctional facility right now, which would mean this would be a return trip and quite costly for the installation. If it could have been such that we could have done it at the same time, I would have brought you some different numbers, but I can't recommend that we would have them do the installation at that. This was all subject to the last page of that packet that I just gave you, and that was the request from the Department of Corrections to expand from 72 beds as the architect had designed to 82 beds. I sent the Department of Corrections the square footage of all the housing units. Gave them the direction as to what we would like to do in changing from 8 beds in some units to 10 and to 12, and some from 12 back down to 8, because it would be more feasible for the space in there by laying the beds in a different configuration than what the architect had. I'm happy to say that they have approved that. This is based on square footage that I received from construction engineers, so I presume it all to be correct. And then using the unencumbered, or determining the unencumbered space and making sure that our showers, our sinks and wash basin, all that stuff meet the letter of the law of the standards. So what you have before you is an approval from the Department of Corrections that if we choose to go to 82 beds in there, we can. The cost of county, I would recommend, would be the 19,105. We do the installation. It would take approximately 6 weeks to get the tables and beds here, which puts us, what, about middle of April? Yeah. Good timing, actually, assuming everything is on time.
Well, it has been
$411,111 on 90 beds. So if we can get an extra 10 for 20 grand, please, let's do it. I'm your approval.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, members of the commission, first item I have today is a revised fee schedule. I was asked by Commissioner Bierke to take a look at it. Current fee schedule is developed, basically the purpose to cover our costs in terms of mileage, staff time, office supplies, so forth. I did take a look at all the major cities, what they charge, what all the major counties charge. I feel that we're pretty in line with that. The last time we updated the fee schedule was 2015. Some of these fees are much older than that. So I did adjust them to account for inflation. The only major changes were with our special use permits for specific uses such as the feedlots and wind farms and pipelines and stuff, which is more staff intensive, in terms of hours and all that type of stuff and mailings. I did set that higher. For example, if we have a wind farm that comes in, they only got like 3 turbines. There is an opportunity for them to come in and appeal to you. You guys can always lower the fee. But I think this kind of puts us in a good position to set us up for worst case scenario, and then we can adjust it from there. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the proposal.
Any questions?
You explained it determined by city that we're working on that, or
Oh,
with the MOU, you want to just let them know what's going on there?
yes, as far as our building inspections program, Commissioner Bierke did meet with the city, and we did work out he did work out the final details in terms of what the cost is going to be. It ends up we're going to be charged mileage for their travel, but they would just keep the permit fee. Previously, when we contracted, we were spending about $3,300 a month, so it should save us some money, in the long run. We will, and then with the caveat that we will, look at it a year from now just to make sure that everybody's being treated fairly.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
The second item is in regards of adding a military advisor to the county P&Z board. I was recently let know that that's something that they were interested in. I did get an email from Mr. Ford, basically stating that the Colonel Monroe would like to have us come up with a proposal that could be reviewed by their law division, and they can make a decision and get back to us on that. So I think the idea behind it is to make sure that the military advisor would be a non-voting member of the planning commission. And 98% of the stuff on the agenda, they're not gonna have anything to do with or care about, but the 2% is something important. So we just basically add them on. I provide with an email. If they accept the proposal, I provide with an email, then they just get the packet the same way all the other planning commissioners do. And if they have comments, they would be more than happy to attend or, send in their comments. But with that, I guess I'm just looking for if there's any other parameters that you guys want added into the proposal, and then I can come back to you at a later meeting date with the proposal for approval, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. I'll provide a little bit of context here. So Dana Sandy approached me, president of the city council, about this issue, and he thought it was a good idea that both city and county planning and zoning bring in I guess, what would the word be? Liaison or advisor, whatever, whether that be the wing commander himself or whomever he designates to kind of react ahead of time, so there's no more. I think we all remember the flu thing debacle. Probably would have been nice to have a airbase member on planning and zoning at that time. Even here at this board level, we had to kind of go in after the fact, call a special meeting to set up some more parameters for that radar tower. I'm sure it's come as a shock to everyone in this room, but to my knowledge, none of the four of us are radar experts. So it's nice to have somebody in the room that has some sort of a sense of what the ripple effect our decisions could possibly have on the base. And we don't want to wreck anything by making some haphazard. So I think this is a fairly common sense approach, and it might prevent the state from then moving to do another 25-mile radius bill, which I don't know that too many people are that interested in giving up all control. But I think this is inviting them to the table, showing our respect, and I think it's proper. So I would move to continue down this path and have Mr. Magnuson provide the Air Force Base with a proposal. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that need to be added. So maybe just shoot it by us all before you send it off. And if something pops off the page, one of us can, redline or make an edit or whatever, but if not, I'd say send it off, but perfect.
Commissioner Rusta, just being kind, he would normally say they need to have a dog in the fight. So, but I talked about that too this morning at the mayor's retention committee meeting this morning, and they thought that was a very positive thing to do. So.
This is just one person that's going to be appointed from the Air Force Base, and are they going to be on the board, but non-voting member? Is it like every year, every 2 years? How would they rotate them out?
Well, every 2 years, the wing commander.
Right.
Makes sense, so whatever the designate for the wing commander.
That's
So,
right. That's just wondering. If that was like
Madam Chair, I can expand on that a little bit. So semantics will be very important in how this is delivered to the air base. Mr. Magnus is correct, it cannot be a voting member. They don't even like the words ex officio member. So it would have to come down as a military advisor. And then once the proposal is sent to Colonel Monroe, it gets staffed. We will, or Mr. Magnuson would eventually receive a letter from the Department of Defense stating that they approve the wing commander or their designee as a military advisor to the county's planning and zoning. And then that's it. So every time a wing commander changes, which is every 2 years, you don't have to go through the process all over again because the approval from the MAJCOM is there.
that's kind of what I was getting at, and how it would go forward and be approved. So very good. All right,
Madam Chair, we have motion.
motion. We had a second.
Second,
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
I
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
thank you. It's like,
All right, these negotiations with the state. I think I'll take this over unless you were. So the last time we had our meeting, I know we had talked about wanting to have a letter of intent and get something put together before crossover. As with some negotiations, it's taking a little bit longer. We're still visiting with the state about what our needs are, what their needs are, what our needs are, and once we find out, we'll bring it back to the board. But other than what we talked about last time and then in our executive meeting, there's no other new news to report. Yes,
I
sir.
just want to bring up, I've come to realize there's a lot more beds out there than what we thought.
Yes.
So for negotiators, there's a lot more beds out there. We're not the only game in town. So we need to remember that. What we thought is not true in the beginning.
And that's what the state's discussing. They're discussing how many they need, who they're gonna have them with, and potentially multiple places.
Yeah, there are, by my count, probably 400 or 500 beds available statewide that I know of. So it's much more than originally what we thought we were going to get in town.
Yeah.
There's an entire league out there.
Amen.
We just deal with cards face up now.
And that's why they're not talking about expanding the bin.
So that's about it
All
for the
right, thanks
update.
for that.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I have a position request in front of you. I have a property tax technician position that was recently vacated that I would like to replace. It is a key position in my office. There's a total of 7 positions. This is the only one that does this. And so I seek permission to fill this vacancy.
Moved.
Second.
With the first and second, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
I,
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Yes. Okay. Mr. Ford.
Oh, sorry, ma'am.
No, you're okay.
Uh,
I mean, we
Not
could-
spoke up a lot.
I didn't wear my hearing aids today, so. Actually, so for the first donated leave policy, I'm gonna ask Ms. Deal to discuss the donated leave policy and just bringing back some recommendations from last commission meeting.
Chair Hagan and commissioners. I had put in the packet, and as you'll see in your screens from the memo, last time we met in February, you were talking about wanting to make some potential changes to the donated leave policy. Some things that I came up with from that conversation, and then kind of looking at different pieces. This is one of the options would be to shorten the time, if you wish, from 6 months to 3 months for eligibility. And at any time, you can leave it where it is if you'd like to as well, or if you have a different idea. Also, removing the terms about the leave committee, because that was the intent in the first time, but it doesn't work in practicality because we've got solid guidelines. Then the other piece is whether or not you want to stick with the 160 hours of donated leave as the maximum amount, or you could increase it and have it be 160 hours twice in a rolling 12-month period of time, so it would work out to be 320. That way, if something wasn't resolved in the first month, they can apply again for a second month. And then it kind of gives some flexibility to request back-to-back leave at different, together or at different times. So something happens at the beginning of employment, something happens 4 months or 5 months later, and they still aren't FMLA qualified, or they still don't have a large leave bank set up. So that's something else you could consider. And then the other piece that was discussed was how many hours someone can donate. And so one of the things that we came up with was typically we have 2 times per year people can donate, or at the end of employment, or if they went from full-time to part-time, so they no longer would get leave. So what we did was we came up with just doubling the amounts if they wish to do that. So those were the recommendations that I came up with. Going back to a direct leave donation, like we said before, really opens us up to things with the IRS, with a lot of employee-related issues about whether or not someone gets somebody to donate for them. So I'll stand for any questions or suggestions.
Any questions?
I'll move approval of the changes recommended.
I'll second. I like the changes recommended. I mean, nothing says we couldn't change it again. I think this is a step in the right direction.
yeah,
And then what I would like to know is when would you like to have this effective? Because Debbie likes effective dates in her motions.
What does Debbie think?
1 April.
April 1st? April Fool's Day?
yeah,
Okay.
April
My
Fool's
mo-
Day.
So my motion,
Yeah, and that will give us time
Yeah,
to
right,
also get it out to everyone.
Yeah, April 1st. All right. All those, do we need to make sure, right?
Yeah.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Steele. Madam Chair, members of the commission, next one, Commissioner Bierke had asked for an alternate budget process proposal to begin the budget process sooner, and I'm gonna defer over to Ms. Nelson to walk through the proposal.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the budget process is laid out in the North Dakota Century Code, Chapter 1123. What's not in there, of course, is something that was added, and I requested the commission to start the process earlier. And by starting earlier, we're looking for direction from the commission. And in there, we have a meeting in April, the first meeting in April, that you would give us goals and priorities for the agenda, or for the budget, I'm sorry. Other than that, a lot of this is the way we currently do things, and we can go through that. The commission communicates with the county administrator and the director of finance and taxes expectations for preparing the next year's budget. We don't discuss the capital improvement projects. We hadn't in the past until after the fact, but you can do that, or you can include that forward. Provide department budget directives. Department budget caps are budget neutral or cut budgets. The hiring freeze that is currently in place. Budget sheets are sent to department heads and partners by third week in May. We let April close, so we have 4 months of history to show the departments where they've been at so far this year, along with the prior year. 2 years on them to make their request. So that's why we wait until May. But then we give them 2 weeks to get that done and get it back to us. First week of June, we enter all of the budget requests into our software, and then we do a printout. So you don't have to manually enter all of the line items. We do that, and we give you the printout of what they've requested. Third week in June, finance sends revised revisions to department heads. Fourth week of June, commission chair, finance administrator meet with department head partners regarding the budget request. And that can be done however you guys want to do it. If you want, if others are interested in seeing the process, you could do that, or if you just want a smaller group first and bring it forward to the full board. We complete our budget meetings, discussions by the last week in June. And county commission meetings, special meetings on before regular scheduled commission meetings, first commission meeting in July, or special meeting. Then you staff presentations of growth, salary, plans, and benefits. Commission provides feedback or directives to the county administrator, director of finance and tax. Finance implements commissioner's feedback. Second commission meeting in July. Staff present final draft budget. Use time between the draft budget preparation and the first commission meeting in August. You hear from departments requesting budget increases outside of commission directive. So we have to have our preliminary budget approved by August 10th. So you will be approving it then August, that first meeting in August. So I can send out the estimated tax statement. County, and that's what I said in the next sentence here. And then we must approve our budget by October 10th. Amend by it. It can be amended by October 10th.
Only down though, right?
Well, from the preliminary, you cannot go up.
Okay.
Yep, only down. So are there any questions or anything that you would like changed from what's stated here?
No, I'm good on that. I'll just, maybe Commissioner, I am gonna have a detailed thing on the 1st of April. I'm gonna be giving everybody that gets money what I think their cut's gonna be. So there's a get out of the bag. I do believe we need to go through and we need to be realistic where we're at. And I'm one of five, three or more decide, totally get it. But I think we need to be realistic where we're going and, I would just say the rest of the commission members, this is the time, that first meeting in April, we need to lay it out. They need to know what we, at least three, want to do. Otherwise, we're wasting their time. So let's not let them go down the road of, fairy tale land, then we're gonna change it at the end. That's just not good for all of us. So I will be very open. Everyone will be getting a handout. And so I would encourage other commissioners, however, what they ever want to do, but we need to send a clear message to Ms. Nelson so she knows. So we're not wasting her time and the department head's time, budgets that are not realistic. So I just wanted to put that out. And thank you for your work on that.
I wanted to bring up this general fund forecast that I showed you a couple of weeks ago. A reminder on the revenue, it's the other revenue. If you look at this sheet, I've got total budgeted revenue and cash in this first column B. Then I've got budgeted property tax, and then I've got the other revenue. So the other revenue are things like our state aid, prisoner board payments, interest income, cost allocation, maintenance for Northeast or the rent that we receive from Northeast, the GAC, fees that are collected and so forth. So that's what our other revenue, that we get our other revenue from. If you take, I took the last 7 years and dropped the loss, the highest and lowest on an average of 2.08%. If by chance we can increase that, that's great. But I took the average and that's what you see in yellow there, is the average. And then I've got the budgeted cash, how much cash we've used each of those budget years and what I'm projecting we use in the future years. I added 2 more years on to this 2031 and 2032 from the last time you've seen it. Did the same thing for expenses. Took the last 7 years, dropped the high and the low, and I got an average of 4.3%. And the net levy, this is the amount that we have levied our property taxes. I added 2 columns as you've seen this last. One is a dollars increase and a percent increase. So that we talk about the 3% cap that could possibly be coming up. If you look in this column, that shows you what this projection at 4.3% increase in expenses and 2.08 increase in other revenue, and using only 1.5 million of our remaining cash. If you go down further, you can see 2024, we ended the year with 19.7 million in cash. End of this year, we'll be at 14 million, and you can see how it goes down until 2032. We'll have $129,000 using the cash like this. If expenses aren't as great as we budgeted or revenues are greater than we have budgeted, we will have more cash available. You can change this to see where you would have to be, this 12.46%, that's in column T, which is a percent increase, 12.46. Let's say below taxes and there's a cap 30%. Where would we have to be? Where would our expenses have to be? We'd have to change this. That's still, we're still at 3.94. We're still above. You could change this and you say we're going to use a little bit more of our cash and say 2 million. So now there's only a 1.32% if we use that much cash. But you can see we'd be in the hole sooner. And that's assuming the valuation is the average. Again, it took the 7 years, dropped the high and the low, and the average is 3.8%. So that's where we're at.
Questions?
Yeah.
So like the cap at 3.88.
Yeah.
That's gonna be 3% cap if it passes. Or is that something different?
That is right.
So that's the average valuation
Right.
increase, but it's column T. If you look at what we levied in the year before,
Right,
the 19 million, compared to what we're gonna levy the next year, that's 3%. But it doesn't really matter if they,
okay.
the valuation increase at that point is what we're going to increase.
And then, is it still, I don't know, I'm not sure what do you still try and keep 15% of your, general fund budget and cash reserves? That's the goal, correct? Okay.
And you can see.
Well, yeah, it's not gonna be there.
Like,
Yeah, got it. And then, excuse me, go ahead. Well, the other thing is I just wanna, when we get into the budget areas, there's some, non-general fund organizations that we fund that have potential to increase their revenue themselves. And we need to make sure we address that, as in cut what they're gonna get from us, and they're gonna have to look at the fees they charge for the services they provide to potentially increase it if they wanna try and make that up. Some of the things we're subsidizing, we cannot continue at the rate that we're subsidizing if we wanna keep the general fund where it used to be, and if we wanna have 15%. So there's gonna be some pain for all involved, but we need to try and share the pain. We just can't keep providing some of these services at the subsidy they're getting now, and they're gonna have to realize that. I'm doing my part to help them, but just so you know. Thanks for that. The main document, could you email that to me?
Mhm.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Any other questions for Debbie?
This is just some further direction, Madam Chair, Commissioners. What Ms. Nelson went through for a different process would essentially be far less meetings for the commission and more on the staff working with the chair. So it's consensus from the board if they'd like to see us go in the route Ms. Nelson just presented.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay. First and a second, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next is Pioneer Room audiovisual updates. At the last commission meeting, the commission had instructed staff to focus on this room only and not so much, or not at all, the Memorial Conference Room. So HPN did update the proposal. It includes just upgrades in the Pioneer Room only. That includes push to speak microphones that prevents feedback. It would include 3 cameras for improved video streaming, which is an issue that we currently struggle with. And it'd be far more user-friendly control system that could be at my desk, it could be at Ms. Wamstead's, Ms. Nelson's, but regardless, the control system would be very small and would be within arm's reach so that I wouldn't have to ask, the sheriff or Ms. Leon to go up to the TV, or you see myself interrupt the meeting to go up to the TV. Makes it a lot better. It improves the audio quality, and I have been receiving complaints from the general public about the quality of the video and the audio. So this will certainly improve it. It's scalable so that if any point in time the commission decided they did want to move forward with improving the Memorial Conference Room, that's doable. The cost, I should mention the setup. I did cover that. The cost of proposal is $121,294.10. Visited with Ms. Nelson and Halverson, and I visited with Evelyn. So there could be some funds from IT. There could be some capital improvements. We can keep working to find the additional funds, but staff would recommend this proposal in order to begin the process of improving the live streaming of the commission meetings. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
It's a lot of money, but I'm a big believer in transparency and accountability. I've heard the same thing. What we have now is adequate, but how long are we gonna be, people want this. We meet at 4, most people don't work. So they shockingly go home and watch this, but we need to make sure that they know what's going on. I think this is a very important for due diligence and transparency. So I'm not the spendthrift, but This to me is a need. The other part, whatever, but I think if we want to be transparent and accountable to our citizens, we need to do this so they can hear and see what goes on as elected officials, what we're doing. And so if we're ready, I'll move approval and that the administrator and Ms. Nelson determine the funding sources.
Second.
You know, first and second, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Some brief legislative updates. So during legislative sessions, we're members of various statewide associations, North Dakota Association of Counties. I know Mr. West has, Ms. Nelson, Ms. Goditis, they have their own associations that we are members of. During the legislative sessions, because they move so quickly, we're often asked as county staff to express support or opposition to certain bills that these associations believe could be harmful or beneficial to the counties. These requests are typically directed to the county administrator, auditor, the engineer, recorder, assessor. In past sessions, the county commission has granted some of that discretion to weigh in on those legislations. However, we have new commission, new expectations. So really staff is seeking direction from the Board of Commissioners on whether to continue weighing in on some of those or not. I think the biggest example was when we were asked to support the gas tax, which wasn't on our legislative priorities. So we'd be looking for some direction from the board. I know Mr. West, I don't know if he's listening, but he had some questions. He's often got many bills that he's asked to weigh in on. So looking just for some direction from the board and what your expectations would be.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, to the sheriff and state's attorney, I know they're also elected. Just keep us in a loop of what you're doing. It's like we'll keep you in a loop. You know, if you're gonna support things just out of courtesy thing, but you're also both elected. I understand that. In general, I as a person, I have an issue with unelected people supporting, saying the county supports something because they don't answer to the people, we do. And so if it's not a comment on them personally, so don't anybody take that. It's just, for example, I'll be blunt, I didn't like it when an unelected doctor tells me I need to wear a face mask. If the elected body wants to tell us to wear, then they can vote and they can get the phone call. I'm not gonna call somebody that's not elected to chew them out. It's just rude to me. It's just not appropriate, but they shouldn't be making those decisions. So if we're gonna be letting people that are not elected, for example, advocate for tax increases, I'm not there, or whatever the issue might be. So I don't know if you wanna, every time we meet, every 2 weeks, this is on the agenda, where there's anything to talk about or not. I also think we have a legislative committee, if they need to meet in the off week. And whoever's there, it doesn't matter who's there. I mean, I'm on now, but it rotates, so it doesn't matter who's there, but then those two people could speak. I just think that some elected officials should be involved in this as opposed to just people who are not elected. That's it. I repeat myself, not a comment on them. It's a comment on the procedures and that the fact that the citizens expect us to be making those decisions. And if they want to chew on me, then, go ahead. But I should be one taking the blame if I make a mistake, as opposed to asking unelected people to go out there, then something blows up. And we're going to ask, well, why did you let them do that? You're the one I elected. That's my theory behind what I was saying.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that request came to me to support that at 11:21 one afternoon and said they're going to vote on this at 12:30. And that's how it comes. That's how our associations tell us that this is coming, and then we don't know always when it's going to be on the floor. And I reached out to Tom and asked, I don't have time, can you do this? And he said he would. He didn't do it, I don't think, until 2:30. So I think the vote already occurred. So I mean, he did his letter, but I think the vote had already taken place. And so it's really a time crunch. when dealing with the legislature. So I don't know what we can do.
I've been mulling that over on how we can give our opinion on if we support things or not with just the way that it goes about, as you said.
Right.
We don't know if it's today or if it's tomorrow when.
And I didn't think anybody would object to that one. So it's really hard for me to know.
I'll give you a hint, if it's raising taxes, you put it up for
But I think it's
Noted.
a benefit to the county.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
yeah, and so again, there's different, I'm not debating, I get it, there's different views.
Right.
But my issue is that when it's all said and done, I answer to taxpayers for whatever gets done in this county. And that's how it should be. If they want to rip, I'm the one they should be ripping off. I'm elected, come after me. I got no problem with that.
Would we be allowed to contact our legislature on the cap? Would you have a problem if we sent a note saying, please oppose this bill? Caps would be bad for the county and this is why. Would that be a problem? Because it would be a last minute thing and all of a sudden it'll be on the floor.
Could that be something that the chair could deal with?
Well, are you available within 30 minutes?
I mean, I can, but sometimes I'm not. And
Or
that's
a
just
designee.
being honest.
Or one of the, one of the commissioners anyway.
And I wouldn't mind if Ms. Wamstead has an opinion on this. I don't want to violate open meeting laws, just, the issues. If she had any thoughts of how we could, I hope you understand where I'm coming from with it, get the elected officials involved. I think that's appropriate. So do you have any thoughts on, any ideas along that line?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bierke, members of the board, I think what Ms. Nelson was suggesting, conferring with the chair, would not be a violation of open meeting clause because it would just be one member. If we have any discussion or any series of discussions that include a quorum of the board, even if they're individual conversations, if they accumulate to be a quorum of the board, then it would be something that would require open meeting.
Madam Chair, again, members of the commission, I just wanted to maybe point out a couple of things that Ms. Wamstead, Ms. Nelson, and probably Mr. Porter are familiar with as well. I'm on the Sheriff's Association Legislative Committee. So it's a group of sheriffs that are willing to participate in it. We meet weekly, right prior to, I believe, your meeting. That's at 2:00. So there's associations that we're part of as employees. Yes, I'm elected, but Ms. Nelson is part of the association. There's a State's Attorney Association. There's associations that employees, departments, etc., NIC specialists in their industry are part of to help through the legislative process. I can go a week with 2 emails regarding bills that are being introduced. Is anybody able to come out? 2, right? And then I can go from 8 to noon on a Thursday saying, and I go through 25 emails. We need somebody to testify on 2138. We need somebody on 2128. We need somebody on the Senate and the House side. Who can submit testimony? Where do we stand on this bill? I mean, I can start sharing and checking with all of you if I'm commenting and submitting testimony, but be ready. And Commissioner Russ said, you better get a cord for your computer because it's going to be running, right? I mean, we're probably doing a little bit more, I would say, on my behalf. And I would assume Nick as well, and Debbie, we're probably communicating more on bills that are being moved through the legislature than you might realize. If there's large things that might affect our county, sure, I can reach out. Most of them that I'm dealing with are related to laws, so it's nothing tax related for the most part, but we can reach out. You could potentially be overwhelmed if you want. So I see that as potentially a slippery slope. Like they're on break right now, right? They go back session next week.
Yeah.
So when they do the crossover, it's going to be a whole new world. And now we're going to start all over at square one. So that's just, I guess, my perspective. I go in and I read testimony that's being submitted. There's a lot that are from individuals, a lot that are from leagues of whatever, League of Cities, League of Counties, NIDR, whoever. So there's a lot of panels and boards that are groups of people that communities, counties, cities trust to help make a decision on behalf of the entire 53 sheriffs in the state of North Dakota, right? For example, that's ours. I believe I think there's 14 sheriffs that are on our committee of 53. So those are the ones that are saying yes, no, if we think it's something that needs bigger input, we'll ask the entire sheriff's, so all of the sheriffs, but that typically is a pretty rare instance at this point. So just a different perspective on it, you know, I've submitted testimony so far on maybe half dozen bills, testified on, I think 2.
Yeah.
So,
But, okay, so you're elected official, so
Correct.
you should be able to decide yourself. I wouldn't think it would.
Right, and
Well, I said that.
and I understand that, but I also want to bring to light that it's not just elected officials that are on boards.
Right,
Right.
You know, there's lots
yeah,
of
I realize that.
people are,
Yeah.
so.
And like you said, most of what you deal with is laws, changes to the laws or.
And so fast paced.
It's so fast paced and it's very
It's
overwhelming.
like
With
you
the
find
amount.
out in less than an hour, you have to write the testimony and you have to get approval from the chair of the commission and get it back to
Yeah.
the legend. It's not gonna.
You know, I think maybe the Association of Counties needs to do a better job of informing.
They don't know, I mean, they tell us as soon as they know. I mean,
It's fast.
it is
Yeah.
really fast and
But it
things
doesn't even
change
give you
really
time to
fast.
think almost, so.
It does not.
I mean, but they're doing the same thing. They have what, 80 days to do
Mhm.
however many things that come
Right.
across their desk, so
Right.
they're not gonna wait.
And we don't wanna wait and do it too early because they're gonna long forget what we said. We wanna do it right before they take the vote.
I mean, for example, you know, Senate Bill 2128 that has to do with truth in sentencing is what it's called, the Attorney General's bill. The Sheriff Association has taken a stance to support that. It was all of a sudden we were notified on a Thursday, it was set to hit the floor. I think it was Thursday, so excuse me if the dates are wrong. But we found out it was set to hit the floor the next morning, 8 o'clock. Well, then it was pushed back to a floor hearing at 10 o'clock. And they want us out there in there contacting our people prior to saying, hey, these are our thoughts, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of, I mean, you just don't know. It's up to the majority leaders, I believe, to set what's hitting the floor that day. And all politics, a lot of strategy there apparently. So that's how come things get bounced around at times. Some of them are no big deal, but then you can have one that gets pushed early because Representative Smith and Smith are all gonna be gone Friday because they're going back home. So now we're gonna do it Thursday afternoon right away. Or they move things to Friday because Smith and Smith are gone. So they get to pass. Like, you just don't know. So it's a different world out in Bismarck.
I on Saturday at noon, received a request to be in Bismarck by Monday at 9 AM to testify on a bill. Then you find out 8 hours later, just kidding, it'll be Monday at 4 o'clock. It moves quickly, but perhaps the solution is if it just doesn't fit within the county's approved priorities, we need to bring it to the board.
Well, normally, most association members have people that are living in Bismarck,
Mhm.
you know, that can represent the association. I mean, you can offer opinion, but it would be that person that would go to a legislature.
Many people as possible.
Yeah.
And I realize that, but it's, the time constraints are ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one. I understand where Commissioner Beardy is coming from, but it is overwhelming, even the amount that we deal with for the legislative priorities that we have. I can't imagine the hundreds of emails that we would be going through and filtering through and constant, you know, like making sure that you're next to your phone 24/7 during those 80 days to give your approval or not, but I don't know, what other thoughts does everyone have?
It's up to you three to figure something out.
I mean, if it doesn't fall under the purview of our legislative priorities, then we have to get it approved. If, you know, I feel like that's the only way to make that doable.
Sheriff, give us that. So before you, just using you as an example, if you were to speak on it, you're obviously more heavily involved in this. So before the session starts, what kind of an idea do you have of what's coming down the pipe? Like, would you, for instance, if you catch wind that there's gonna be 20 or 30 bills on each side that would greatly affect law enforcement? Or do you find out about this stuff late in the game to where I'm just trying to think if there's like a happy medium we can reach between what Commissioner Bierke wants to do, but also to understand that it's kind of high flying and fast pace out there. Because we know that a lot of the topics that you referenced aren't even gonna be something we have an opinion on. So I don't really want those emails or to carry around my card. But I totally understand what he's saying, and it makes all the sense in the world. I'm just trying to wonder logistically how we arrive at that solution.
Sure. So Commissioner Rusted, members of the commission, the Association of Counties, they compile, they go through all of the bills that are submitted. They get numbered, whatever. They go through them and they categorize them, and they look at bills that could impact counties, right? And that could be auditors, state's attorneys, law enforcement. They categorize them by the entities that they'll impact, and then they actually have, you can go onto their Association of Counties website to see how they categorize them. So we do have a heads up on a lot of them, but I mean, it's a lot to dig through, right? Over 1,000 usually. So we do know about some that are coming up. We don't always know when they're gonna get a hearing. Most are scheduled. But for example, well, it was probably 3 weeks ago, maybe a little bit more, we were notified that there was going to be a new bill introduced, which you can apparently introduce bills at certain times. I thought they all had to be in early. No, they don't. A bill was introduced by, I believe, a Fargo legislator that was looking to decriminalize possession of marijuana under half ounce, make it just basically a citation, a fine, monetary fine of $150. And so that was shot out to us saying, hey, where do we stand? What do we want to do? This is going to be hitting committee. Are we going to be submitting testimony for or against? Be neutral? What's our comment? And we didn't have any foresight on it until Cass County Sheriff was notified by the legislature that was submitting it that, hey, I'm going to put this in. And long story short, we couldn't come to a agreement. So if anybody wanted to submit testimony, it was on your own as a sheriff for that. Well, it passed the House. It's on its way to the Senate now. So we don't always have the foresight on things. And then, you know, we also find out that some of you are aware of that even things that we work to have defeated, or, well, typically it's defeated, sometimes those are then added into other bills. They attach them into other bills. And so we have to try to track those as well. And now something that we spent, you know, hours and days trying to defeat, submitting testimony, now it's being resubmitted underneath something else. We have to watch for those as well. So we typically have a heads up on some of them. It's still just getting through all of them. We try to play it on a week by week basis. It's a little more manageable, to see who can testify, get the experts out there, whatever. So we watch the weekly calendar, dig through it.
Because knowing all this, I appreciate the thoughts on it. Knowing all this, I guess I almost have to, I mean, I don't know what you think, Commissioner Bierke, but we almost have to kind of play it by ear, don't we? I mean, if they, you know, Debbie sees something on her desk that they're asking her to weigh in on something and she's not comfortable doing it without running it by us, I guess, I don't know. If she thinks it's gonna be a real big impact, maybe call, start with Kim and go down the line.
Well, we're in a meeting, then we can't do that. Right? I mean, once you start going down the line, you're in a meeting.
At least until you can't find something, is that what you mean?
Just one.
Just like
Yeah, you do one, but once,
Commissioner.
if you go to 3, you're in a
Well,
meeting.
that's what I meant. If she's, you know, been hockey game with a kid or something, I answer or whatever.
Sure, the members of the commission. Perhaps one way to go about this too, could be carving out certain things for maybe the commission, certain topics that the commission would like to have the opportunity to review either as the legislative committee or as the full commission. I think given past conversations, one of those would obviously be any sort of tax raise or tax concerns. But when it comes down to, like Sheriff Schneider is mentioning, the policy issues or other items that directly affect departments and department operations or Grand Forks County citizens, perhaps there could be some sort of language that we use on a broad scope about being able to take a stance on those items that either negatively or positively impact county operations and citizens. And then with the caveat that information and updates be provided to the commission in summary as soon as that happened. If it's, an instance where something pops up and you have to react quickly because it could be really adverse, thinking about Northwood Deaconess and the issue with taxi districts and ambulances, because that's something that had to be moved pretty quickly on and pretty technical in policy in a lot of ways. But
I think it's a great idea. Maybe something along the line of operational, that's good, of affect our operations that the department head or whoever, Mr. Fuller, whoever would take care of that. I think things that, what I would call the real heavyweight stuff that, and if, like I said, the legislative committee could come in on the off week, I'll trust whoever, I'm on it now, but whoever, those two people could, but maybe that'd be a good compromise. Look at it, compromise. It'd be a good compromise to have, the generic, those generic type that you talked about, operations and things along that line be done by the department head or Mr. Ford, and then the things that they can tell, hey, we're on thin ice with this one, maybe we're gonna bring this to the commission, or at least the legislative committee. I think we could craft something and word that appropriately and bring something back along that line. I would support that.
it might not be perfect, but
Well, it's better than just and actually, I'll say it for the third time, it's not coming on anyone, but I'm not a fan of carte blanche. Just do whatever you want, because I answer to taxpayers. And I need to be able to give a good answer why we do something. So I like that. I think it's a great
I
idea.
do too. I'll move approval of what Tracy just said.
What she just
However
said.
she worded it,
Go
I
back to
approve
the
it.
minutes and look at what she said.
Well, they could draft up a policy, draft up a policy and bring it back.
And bring it
next
back
week.
to us for us to approve at the next meeting.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah. Amend my motion to say what Terry also said.
Yeah.
So, Tracy plus Terry equals Mark.
All right, if you got all that, we have a first and a second. All those in favor of what was just said. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick update on some of the legislative priorities we are watching. You probably already noticed that there's a lot of property tax relief and reform bills floating around. 5 of 7 passed and are now going to go to the other side to cross over. There's still a lot of questions of what is 3% capping on. I think Ms. Nelson did a pretty good job of that. But I would say that regarding what's next, these bills that have all passed, they passed the House, the 2 Senate bills failed. They're now crossing over. There's still a lot that can happen. I mean, there's going to be markups, there's going to be amendments, there's going to be dying on the floor. Whatever has changed will still go to conference committee. So we still have a long ways to go with those property capping bills, but we're watching those. Just a couple of others, unfortunately, and Ms. Leon did mention this, House Bill 1339, which would have exempted Northwood Deaconess Healthcare Center from creating another district, failed. And that was in regards to ambulance service. Senate Bill 2398, Commissioner Rusted already alluded to it. That was the bill that would have created a military commission and military operating zones to set a 25-mile radius for encroachment. That one went through a number of amendments and it did pass, but it took the 25-mile military radius zone out. So we're still keeping an eye on that one. House Bill 2013 aimed at providing $50 million for low interest loans for jail improvements. That got a do not pass recommendation. We're watching it. Senate Bill 2128 concerning truth in sentencing. I won't elaborate because the sheriff already elaborated on that. So the big one is we're watching the property tax relief bills to see what happens with those in the next few months. Next is agenda procedures at the February 4th commission meeting. Staff were instructed to create a policy outlining how the county commission agenda order should be modified at the beginning of meetings. Following that February 4th meeting, Ms. Nelson did share the existing policy that the county has, policy 00106, which covers agenda procedures. Myself, Ms. Wamstead, Ms. Nelson, we are proposing an amendment. You'd see it in red font. And it just revises the existing policy instead of creating a new one. And it outlines a process for amending the county commission meeting agenda or the order of. Happy to answer any questions.
So it says at the start of each meeting, but this is, I mean, it'd be under the.
So, Madam Chair, approval of the order of the agenda. So, I think if, Commissioner Ross, he wanted to move something, not a big deal, but perhaps the commissioner wants to add a subject to the agenda that wasn't on the publicly notified agenda. And I think this is what Commissioner Bierke was getting at last meeting. So if a commissioner wants to add something that wasn't on the original, this would be your process essentially for adding it. In the red font.
Can you scroll to the next page? Just, I just want to make sure I got that bottom part right. Oh, I'm good. I'll move approval.
Second.
The first and the second, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Last item I have, Madam Chair, Commissioners, is a Project Ultra IDIQ contract modification request. Just really quick, I was asked to just do another quick rundown of what Project Ultra is and where the funding comes from. So Project Ultra, as we call it, it is essentially a government-to-government contract. So the contract is between the Office of the Secretary of Defense and Grand Forks County. And essentially we are tasked with proof of concept of the integration of small to medium-sized UAS in the national airspace, both in a restricted and non-restricted airspace. The county, since we leveraged our existing agreements with Grand Sky and the test site, and so we executed a subcontract with Grand Sky Research, and we worked with the test site. And it also involves NASA and some other four-letter word entities to help execute our IDIQ. Right now there are the potential for 6 task orders. Each task order builds upon the last task order. So task order 1 really was coming up with a plan and running simulations how to launch a UAS carrying a 50-pound cargo from Grand Forks Air Force Base to Cavalier Space Force Station. We successfully completed task order 1. Task order 2 is what we're currently undergoing. More troubleshooting with a live flight later this spring from the base to Cavalier.
Didn't want to interrupt.
Yes.
In your middle of your topic, in case I was the only idiot, but what is an IDIQ?
Oh, it is a contract. We see it a lot with federal contracts. I can't remember the acronym off the top of my head. Of course, you would have asked. Do you know what that stands for? IDIQ? Investigate.
Indefinite,
Indefinite quantity.
yes, and indefinite work, indefinite quantity.
It's one of those things.
It's a fancy DOD term.
Like, obviously.
Obviously, it's an IDIQ.
Indefinite delivery, indefinite.
So it's a contract for us to deliver services to the DOD essentially. Yeah, no, a good question, and I should have wrote that down. I should have anticipated that, Commissioner Ruster. Thank you.
I think we need a cheat sheet of all of them.
Something up
It's
to
probably
Bob
gonna
and he
be a
goes,
binder.
Yeah. like, so-
I didn't know. So we now you got me flustered, Commissioner Ruster.
Sorry, buddy.
We will have a live flight later this spring for proof of concept. The first task order was 2.5 million. The second, I believe, is 3.5 right now that we're executing. Commissioner Bierke, this is federal money. This is research, development, testing, and evaluation DOD money. So it's not county money. Just thought I'd make that clear.
He said that, but it's just a 4 out of 10.
We have a ceiling. We have a ceiling of 15 million. It does not guarantee the county 15 million. We have a ceiling of up to 15.
Who's the conduit?
Yeah, we are the conduit. Yes, sir. It worked because we already had a lot of different DOD contracts, i.e. Grand Sky. And so the county was able to provide, just like Grand Sky, and what we call an unsolicited proposal, government to government. In other words, the county went to the DOD and said, we have this asset that we think you guys can use, and we're the government. And they said, sounds great. And then we subbed with our subject matter experts, Grand Sky Research, and they're responsible for the deliverables through us. So yes, we are essentially a pass through. So, but happy to answer questions on what Project Ultra is. Hopefully it'll keep going. I think it will. But what this contract mod is saying is, the Ultra team, the county was tasked with selecting a drone for task order 2. In a nutshell, we were gonna work with a company called Skyways. The Navy already has contract with Skyways and has these drones. Therefore, the Project Ultra team does not need to go and purchase a drone. That would be compatible with the Navy. So what OUSD did, or OSD did, is they said, we're gonna claw back some of this money, $650,000, that you as a county were gonna use to purchase a drone. Because the Navy already has it. So we're gonna take that $650 and compensate the Navy to use their drone to run our proof of concept through task order 2. So what this contract amendment is saying is exactly that. We are, as a county, are de-obligating $650,000. We do not have a choice, and need approval and chair's signature on that modification.
I'll move approval on the chair's
Second.
signature.
For a second, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Very good. Is it in this?
No, I never had it.
I do. You need the contract? Yes, I do have it.
If you want a signature, I probably should.
Yes, that would
Funny,
be
I'm
good.
forging it.
I don't know if you should. Yep, you're up. Sorry.
Madam Chair, members of the board. The first item I have under the state's attorney report, I believe is included in the packet. It is the draft contract for CBIC's lease. If you recall, we previously discussed our partner agency, CBIC, wished to lease some office space that was available in this building. And so this is the lease that was negotiated by Mr. Ford with CBIC. I believe the rental rate is comparable to other tenants in the building, to be fair to them. And so I can answer any questions the board may have, or if there are no questions, I'd ask for a motion to approve this contract.
Second.
We have a first and a second to approve the lease agreement. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you. The second item I have, I placed on your desk a position request form along with some other accompanying documents. I apologize that this was not included in the packet. At the end of the day on Friday, unfortunately, I received a resignation of one of our assistant state's attorneys that's moving out of the area. She gave us 30 days notice. And so I didn't want to wait until the next commission meeting to request that we have permission to fill this position. On the position request form, I've outlined some of the questions. Essentially, the role of this position is as our other assistant state attorneys to prosecute criminal offenses. The others in the office have full caseloads and would be able to absorb the caseloads of an additional attorney. So I would ask for board's permission to fill this position.
Moved.
Second.
The first and second, all those in favor of approving the position, Ms. Olmsted, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you. I have nothing further for the board.
All right, committee reports, Mr. Bierke.
Just real quick, I met with Mr. Phelan and the mayor on a handful of issues. They're all going to come to you eventually. I've passed the buck off to Mr. Ford, Ms. Wamstead. So it's some agreements and some, I can tell you right now, we're going to be getting that land. We wanted for a while, that courthouse land, no charge. So you'll be seeing all that done. I didn't make any deals on behalf of the county. I mean, I didn't sign anything. They'll be working out the agreements the planning MOU, about land, an issue with, state's attorney, how reports are being written and not interface, things along that line. So I just met with them for a couple hours, really good conversation. We have to remember we're one team, one fight. If you live in the city, you're a county resident. And when you live in the county, come here and spend property tax, you benefit the city. There's no use fighting each other. There's no use asking each other to pay exorbitant fees for this or that. We're just taxing and feeing each other. So we need to work together more. And I kept, Miss Egan, I made sure I got her, and so she was in the loop. I let her know what's going on. So the staff will take it from here. So, and you'll see all that down the road. We'll be voting on most of that stuff. It's voting things. The other thing I want to bring up is I talked to Mr. Ford. There are potentially 3 entities that might want to rent some office space. We will not be hiring a consultant. I'm ready to help move the stuff. I will bring the donuts. And so I would appreciate if Mr. Ford let Mr. Grzeszewski know in 2 weeks from now, I want to know how many empty offices we get. We need to consult with Ms. Nelson too, because she has her election stuff. I don't know how just dirty, we got to make sure that's properly maintained. So she'll need to be in the loop too, but there are empty offices all throughout this building on multiple floors, and they got stuff up them. It's called shelving. We need to buy some, that we buy it. I think there's a potential we could rent a fair amount of offices out, which is increased revenue. And that non-tax revenue, we need to increase non-tax revenue. So I'm asking for Mr. Ford to come back in 2 weeks with a plan to contact those agencies, to look and see what they're looking for. CVIC has the right of first refusal. It was in that lease we just approved on their floor. So obviously they're number 1 on the list. But and I'm serious. Maybe the day I'll come in. I'll bring the donuts. We'll get this stuff moved and rearranged and try and get these offices rented out as fast as we can, because I've gone from the roof to the top, bottom, and went through everywhere. We got a lot of offices here we can rent out if we just do some cleaning up and consolidation. So I've asked Mr. Ford to bring that back in 2 weeks with a plan of what we can do and find out who's really interested, what kind of office space they're looking at. And so if that's the case, we can start drawing up some agreements to get these things rented out. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. I went to the township board meeting on the 24th of February. Commissioner Bierke was there also. Mr. Ford, Ms. Wamstead, Sheriff Schneider was there. And, that is such a good meeting. I can't think of too many that I've missed in all my years, even when I was sheriff, but it was, it's very informative, and it shows that we care about the people in this county, that if they have problems, we want to know about it, and we let them know what county government is doing for them. So I thought it was very informative, and I thought it was a very good meeting. The other thing is, this morning I had a mayor's base retention meeting over at the Chamber of Commerce with Barry Wilford, Mayor Bochinsky, and Bruce Jovic, and talked about some various issues at the going on at the base and what's coming up. Also talked to Ms. Leon about a grant that she was writing that I guess is kind of on hold right now.
We're still working on the grant itself.
Okay.
Commissioner Austin and another commissioner, we're still working on the grant itself and getting everything figured out. We are just tempering expectations, as we know a lot is in flux in the federal government right now. So we're watching the entity very
Let's
closely.
look out for the chainsaw, okay?
We're doing our best.
Okay. If you would let maybe Barry Wilford know about this or whatever.
For sure.
Okay. All right. And then I had my jail construction meeting this on Tuesday. An issue came up with the remodeling for the health department within the old correctional center. They have to build it's called Area E firewall to the tune of $48,292, which needs to come out of owner contingency, and that puts us at $28,652.36 in the hole in owner contingency. However, there may be, if we get through another month with no snow, we might be able to recover that money out of the snow removal budget out there. So, what I need is approval from the commission to allow this firewall to be built for that price, for that $48,000. Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 And that's all I have.
Motion approved.
Maybe in a month, you can come back, Mr. Ford, if you want to know, the first meeting in April, if the snow money's still a month, then we can do that, so Ms. Nelson can keep the
Yeah.
folks.
Now, Mr. Grachewski said he's got some plans for some of it, but
Well, you can coordinate with him then, but
yeah,
maybe the first meeting in April, we can get a update on that.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So at Airport Authority, reported back on some of the traffic that's gone through the airport and Grand Forks here. Little down compared to some of the other in North Dakota, but there's some things in the works that I think you're gonna be, I don't know, optimistic, I guess. They've got likely in-person meetings at the headquarters of 3 major airlines trying to bring more flights into this airport. I forget the names of the companies, but one of them's out west and one's in, I want to say, Georgia. I think it's relevant. Three meetings at 3 different locations in 3 different states at headquarters for airlines. And hopefully we get a flight or 2 or 3 or 10 out of it. That's the whole, so it's a consulting group that the city had hired to try to attract more flights to the area, along with the airport director, Ryan Rieslinger, and then potentially 1, maybe 2 airport authority board members. I will not be accompanying on that trips across the country, but hopefully they get somebody that's important on the airport. We had the sheriff and potential of a consolidation between the sheriff and the jail, kind of got some more information. It's been good to see how other counties operate their jails and whatnot. I think the meetings have been largely productive. So we're waiting on a few more items. I did add this to the agenda for our next March meeting. And that would be it for me.
Great, I already touched on the lease negotiations with the state, so hopefully by our next commission meeting, we'll have more information. And then the water board and A&W LLC are still, I don't want to say going at it, but they're, having their heated conversations about what we're going to do with Drain 4. We did have a very good meeting with A&W on Thursday. Was it Thursday or Friday? I can't remember.
That's Thursday now.
That's Thursday, okay. And so we have some questions that I believe Ms. Lomstead is going to investigate and then report back with this report on what the county's role could be in that and what we can do while staying in our lane, but also getting to move forward because it's 20 years in the making and we want to bring it across the finish line. So I've stayed in contact with them, reassuring them that we're following up, and then hopefully we'll have more answers about that. So.
Also, I would say, I request Mr. Ford to set up monthly meetings with Mr. Phelan to make sure we're staying together as a city and a county. I think there's more potential out there for looking for things to do where we could try and work with each other and save money. So I would appreciate if Mr. Ford would set that in, so you all know too. I think we need to have more communications. There are things we can do to save money. We shouldn't be duplicating.
Right, being good partners.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Brzezinski talked about that, the base realignment.
Very good. I have a question just to the general, maybe it was before my time, but didn't we have meetings, the county, city, school district have meetings together?
Years ago, they used to.
But
We still do, ma'am.
okay,
They're quarterly.
okay. I thought the commissioners and like other elected officials were,
If they were interested.
Well,
I feel like I had
they
that
used to
heard.
go.
Okay.
I remember going, when I was an accountant, I think we probably should set something up and And
I
make
feel
sure
like that
the
would be-
commissioners know, yeah.
Yeah, appropriate. I apologize, maybe I've not been aware of these meetings, but I would be more than happy to attend and or be a part of that. It's a good idea.
I think I can't remember the exact date, but when is scheduled for April, I can. Is that right, Debbie? Does that sound right? I'll let you know.
April 23rd.
Okay. Other than that, I am no other business. So unfinished and new business.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we have 2 properties that didn't sell at our delinquent property tax sale. The law allows us to sell them to a city that has delinquent specials if they agree to waive those specials. So I need a motion to cancel the taxes, waive the specials, and sell those 2 properties to the city of Inkster for $25 each.
Move.
Second.
The first and the second, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. And we have some correspondence, right?
Just informational. Interaction with, this is the refund that we get from the North Dakota Recorders Information Network.
Community services.
$12,215.26.
Welcome.
They are very welcome.
Move adjournment.
There's a
Second.
I let Bob get me this week.
All right, we are adjourned.
I was keeping my eyes on you, Bob.
Yeah.